Part 1. The space between heartbeats. There comes a moment, quiet and unannounced, when a woman no longer yearns for noise. She does not retreat out of fear, nor isolation, nor bitterness. She chooses silence because she has finally heard her own voice, and it sings. You did not wake up one morning and decide solitude was your salvation. No, it was a slow blooming, like light bleeding through the edges of heavy curtains. You learned that the ache you once mistook for love was often just the absence of it. And so you stopped searching for reflections in broken glass. There is something radical, almost rebellious, about a woman who says, "No more," not in anger, not in grief, but in reverence, because you know now, to settle is to betray your own soul. You've walked away from rooms where your name was only half remembered. You've outgrown the language of longing, no longer fluent in the dialect of need. Once, you waited to be chosen. Now you choose yourself, each morning, each breath, each heartbeat. And in that sacred act, you reclaim every piece of yourself you once bartered for crumbs of affection. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the journey of becoming whole. He knew the self was not a fixed destination, but an unfolding. A woman who chooses solitude is not running from love. She is walking toward her wholeness. And the path is not paved with grand romances or fleeting touches. It is carved in silence, lit by intuition, and guarded by the fierce, soft knowing of the heart. You remember the myths, the goddesses who descended into the underworld not to be punished, but to reclaim their power. Inanna, Persephone, Psyche. They all walked alone for a time. They all returned changed. You too have descended, and you too have emerged with eyes that see through veils and hands that no longer tremble when empty. Your solitude is not a void, it is a temple. Inside, there are no masks, no negotiations of worth, no shrinking to fit someone else's story. There is only truth, raw and luminous. It does not always smile, it does not always soothe, but it frees you. You stopped measuring love by proximity. You began measuring it by presence, by energy, by resonance, by how deeply someone could sit with your silence and not flinch. And in doing so, you disassembled every belief that told you you were incomplete alone. People ask if you are lonely. They mistake quiet for absence, stillness for sorrow. They cannot yet fathom that what you have built is not a cage, but a sanctuary. There was a time you wore your heart like an open window. Now it is a garden with a gate. Not everyone may enter, and not because you are guarded, but because you are sacred. Energy is not a currency you spend recklessly anymore. You have learned to read vibration like a second language. The moment someone speaks from lack, from ego, from hunger, you feel it. And you do not shame them. You simply know they are not for you. You no longer play the healer in stories that demand your wounding. You no longer audition for roles that diminish your light. There is no arrogance in this choosing, only clarity, only the soft discipline of self-respect. A woman who has learned her own frequency cannot pretend to forget it. The world may tempt her with comfort, with familiarity, even with love in fractured forms, but she knows what wholeness feels like now. She knows what home feels like within her own bones. Anything less echoes like a false note in a sacred song. You are not hard to love. You are hard to deceive. And there is a difference. This is not about swearing off love. It's about elevating the kind you allow in. It's about knowing that not all love is medicine. Some love is a mirror of the parts you've already outgrown. Some love is a lesson with sharp teeth. Some love is a dim flame pretending to be warmth. You no longer drink from those wells. You are not waiting. You are not hiding. You are living in the pause between heartbeats, where everything is possible and nothing is promised. You are honoring yourself too deeply to invite in what cannot hold you without hurting you. This is the sacred rebellion of the woman who chooses solitude, not because she has given up on love, but because she finally knows what love is, and it starts here, in the space where she is whole, in the silence that sings, in the mirror that reflects not longing, but light. Part 2. The Sacred Mirror. Some evenings, when the moon slips like silver through the window, you sit with your own reflection. Not in a mirror, but in the still waters of your being. There, in that vast and quiet lake, you see her. The woman you became when you stopped needing to be needed. She does not look lonely. She looks eternal. Her eyes no longer search. They witness. Her breath is not tethered to the presence or absence of another. She breathes as the trees do, rooted, ancient, alive. There's a kind of love that feels like hunger. You have known it, the kind that begs to be fed, to be answered, to be completed. It wraps itself in sweet phrases and promises, but beneath its perfume is a desperation, an ache to be filled. That love does not speak your language anymore. You speak of resonance now, of soul meeting soul without demand, without disguise. Not to complete, but to reflect. You are the sacred mirror, and not everyone can stand their reflection in you. Some flinch at the brightness, others at the depth. You no longer dim to ease their discomfort. You no longer drown your clarity just to swim in their shallow waters. Jung spoke of the anima, the feminine soul, the vessel of emotion, intuition, and image. He knew her power was not in softness alone, but in her ability to descend, to feel, to know. The woman who chooses solitude reclaims the anima as sovereign, not as the shadow of a man's psyche, but as her own center. As archetype, as flame, as compass. You are not lost. You are simply unmoved by things that no longer call your name. There is a liberation in no longer needing to convince someone of your worth. You used to over-explain your boundaries, your needs, your silence. Now, you simply live them. Whoever understands, understands. Whoever doesn't, was never meant to carry your frequency. This is how you filter now, not with walls, but with wavelength. You are not inaccessible. You are precise. You love deeply, but not indiscriminately. You listen to energy the way others read words. You know when someone arrives from their wounds instead of their wholeness. You know when they seek your fire to warm their emptiness, not to share in its light. And so, you bless them and release them. This is not cruelty. This is clarity born of pain transmuted into power. You did not get here easily. You walked through grief that stripped you bare. You mourned the stories that once held your identity. You let go of love that felt like home, but kept burning it down. You unhooked your worth from being wanted, and in the ashes, something ancient rose, a woman untamed, whole, awake. You do not wear your solitude like armor. You wear it like a gown of stars. It is not protection, but poetry. Not a shield, but a shrine. Here in this stillness, you are not untouched by love. You are immersed in it, the kind that needs no name, the kind that comes from the earth and the wind, and the quiet exhale of a day well lived, the kind that sits with you at night and whispers, "You are enough. You have always been enough." There are days when the past returns in echoes, a memory, a scent, a song, You feel it rise like smoke in the lungs, but you no longer confuse nostalgia with desire. You no longer return to what you had to heal from. Instead, you hold the memory like a stone, smooth and cool, and then you place it gently down. You do not carry what is no longer yours. You understand now that love is not possession nor performance. It is not a hunger to be fed, but a fullness to be shared. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to be met. And until you are met, in depth, in reverence, in truth, you will remain alone. Not because you lack love, but because you have become love. Your solitude is not a waiting room, it is a threshold. It is the sacred ground where you shed old skins and sing your own name into the wind. It is where you meet yourself, again and again, in deeper layers, in wider circles, in fiercer grace. You are not asking for too much. You are asking the right questions. And those who cannot answer in the language of soul are not your people. This is your reclamation, not of independence, but of intimacy with self. Not of walls, but of wisdom. Not of silence, but of sacred discernment. Part 3. The Threshold of Return. There is a quiet revolution happening in you. Not loud like fire, but slow like roots. It does not seek applause. It seeks truth. And in that truth, you have become your own sanctuary. Some nights when the stars gather like soft witnesses above your solitude, you think about love. Not with longing, but with inquiry. Not, will it come? But what form must it take to deserve the woman I've become? You are no longer a shore waiting to be reached. You are the ocean now, and not everyone can swim in you. There was a time you mistook intensity for intimacy, when love that consumed you felt like proof of its depth. You didn't yet understand that emotional chaos is not a measure of connection. It's a measure of unmet wounds colliding in the dark. You've walked through that fire. You know better now. Mature love does not set fire to your boundaries. It honors them. It doesn't demand your surrender. It invites your expansion. It sees the entirety of you, the light and the shadow, and chooses not to flee. But before anyone else could offer that to you, you had to give it to yourself. That is what solitude taught you. To sit with your own darkness without running. To embrace the parts of you that were once too much, too tender, too wild. To hear the quiet voice beneath the noise, the one that whispers not what the world wants, but what your soul needs. In the mythology of the soul, there is always a descent. Psyche had to enter the underworld. Inanna had to remove all her garments at each gate. You, too, were stripped of all illusions, of safety, of identity, of control. You were brought to your knees not as punishment, but as initiation. Because a woman who has descended into herself and returned does not love the way she did before. She is not captivated by performance. She is not seduced by potential. She is not impressed by how someone touches her body if they cannot also hold her truth. She waits, not in idleness, but in embodiment. She becomes the love she seeks, not as mimicry, but as magnet. There is no longer a hunger in your eyes, only discernment. You see now, emotional freedom is not the absence of love, but the presence of self. You are no longer defined by who chooses you. You are defined by who you choose in return. If and only if their energy does not cost you your clarity. You've stopped romanticizing rescue. You've stopped scripting your story around who stays and who leaves. You are the heroine now. The author, the fire, the ink. There will be those who do not understand this path, who call it lonely, guarded, cold. Let them. They do not yet know the taste of wholeness. You have stopped compromising in the name of connection. If someone cannot meet you in your full spectrum, your laughter and your grief, your fire and your stillness, you will not bend to be more palatable. You will not fold yourself smaller just to be held, because you have become a woman who holds herself. And that is no small thing. That is the shift. The moment you stopped asking love to save you and began asking it to meet you. Not in illusion, not in projection, but in truth. You no longer pray for someone to arrive. You pray to remain in your own integrity until someone comes who speaks the same emotional language. Until then, you are not waiting. You are growing. You are creating. You are loving, not in halves or shadows, but in the full bloom of your being. Solitude is not your exile. It is your evolution. You have not become harder. You have become clearer. You have not given up. You have risen up. And when love does arrive again, if it does, it will not be to fill a void. It will be to witness a miracle. The miracle of a woman who found herself, who kept herself, who never again made herself small for the comfort of others. You will not beg for belonging. You will bless your own becoming. And in that sacred place, between solitude and surrender, you will know whatever comes next must be worthy, not perfect, but present, not flawless, but conscious, not performative, but real. A love that recognizes you, not just the light in your smile, but the silence in your strength. And if it never comes, you are still whole, you are still home, you are still holy. Part 4. The new myth of her. She walks now like someone who has made peace with the sky. There is no urgency in her step, no longing trailing behind her like forgotten threads. Her presence is not loud, but it is unmistakable, like the scent of rain before it falls, like the hush of a forest that has known centuries. She is the woman who chose herself, and the world doesn't quite know what to do with her. Not because she is unknowable, but because she no longer fits into the story it wrote for her. The story where her worth was measured by who loved her, who needed her, who stayed. That script has burned. In its place, she has written something older, something raw, something sacred. She is no longer the princess waiting in the tower. She is the wild mountain itself. And from this height, she sees clearly. She sees how often women were taught to trade intuition for approval. How often they dimmed their inner knowing to keep peace, to earn love, to avoid being left. She sees how many mistook self-sacrifice for emotional maturity. How many learned to tolerate imbalance, to confuse endurance with commitment. But she does not confuse those things anymore. She is not willing to bleed just to keep someone from leaving. She does not measure love by how much she can survive. She measures it by how much truth it allows her to live in. Jung wrote of the self as the union of opposites, the conscious and the unconscious, the light and the shadow, the feminine and the masculine. This is what she has become. Not one or the other, but the integration of all. She is the moon and the sun, the wound and the healer, the silence and the storm. She no longer asks, "Will you love me?" She asks, "Can you meet me?" And she is willing for the answer to be no, because she knows that to betray herself for connection is the deepest kind of loneliness. She has done it before. She has worn smiles that hurt her mouth. She has shrunk her dreams to fit into smaller hands. She has said yes when her soul was screaming no, no more. Now she speaks with her full voice, and if it is too much for someone, she blesses them and keeps walking. not with malice but with reverence for them, for herself, for the path. This is the new myth of her. She is not the prize at the end of the hero's journey. She is the journey. She is not the reward for someone else's awakening. She is awake, and she will not be claimed by those who cannot recognize her spirit. But she will open to those who arrive not to possess, but to walk beside her, not to complete, but to witness, not to tame, but to understand. And perhaps one day such a soul will arrive, or perhaps not. It is no longer the point, because she has learned the most radical thing a woman can learn in a world that teaches her otherwise, that her love is not something to be earned, it is something to be aligned with, that being alone is not a sentence, it is a state of grace, that she is not missing something. She is remembering herself. She lives now with a quiet certainty. She knows that her worth is not conditional, that her love is a garden, not a bargain, that her presence is an offering, not a performance. There will still be days when her heart aches for closeness. She is human, she is tender, she is made of longing and stardust like the rest of us. But she will not trade her truth for touch. She will not trade her wholeness for company. She will not trade her voice for warmth. Instead, she will wrap herself in her own arms and say, "You are not alone. You are with me." And in that moment, the ache becomes devotion. The solitude becomes ceremony. Because she did not choose to be alone out of emptiness, she chose it out of reverence for the woman she has become, for the life she is creating, for the love she now knows she deserves. And so she continues, quiet, radiant, unshaken, a storm in soft skin, a temple with a pulse, a woman who will not settle because she is no longer searching. She is home, because choosing yourself was never loneliness, it was rebirth.